Magic Bus film and talk by one of the people who was there at the time. Our guest today, I'm very pleased to say, is Peter Lamborn Wilson. He has been called an anarchist, a scholar, philosopher, public intellectual, radio personality, prophet, but tonight he's here. Today he's here as a poet. Please welcome Peter Lamborn Wilson.
Thank you. Can you all hear me in the back if I speak at about this level?
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm a Luddite, so I didn't want to have a microphone. I thought that this room had good enough acoustics.
How about turning the lights off?
Turn the light, and then I can't read. I'm going to read today from my latest book, River People, which is for sale here. It costs $20, along with other of my books and other books by local writers, all published by Autonomous Media of Brooklyn. And with every book purchase, you get a free calendar as long as they last of our Jubilee Saints. Oh, Peter, you should get one. And now this book is sort of an epic. It's mixed poetry and prose, and it's all about the Esopus River. I had originally, when I moved up to Ulster County in 1999, I wanted to write a poem about every single body of water in the county. Rivers, creeks, kills, lakes, ponds, mud puddles, everything. But then I soon realized that that was not possible. It would take me the rest of my life and I'd never finish. So I thought I would limit myself to one body of water, and I chose the Esopus River because it has so much fascinating history. And I have to say also because it's so messed up. You know, it's been so insulted over its life, and yet it survives. So there's a certain kind of. In fact, the first part of the poem that I'm going to read is about the Ashokan Dam, which is one of the major insults that happened to the river. It divides the river in two in the middle, and of course the dam was built in 1917. It was an ecological disaster, really, when you come to think of it. Of course, now it looks nice. We get nice water from it, so it's not so bad. It could be worse, right? It could be a Hilton Hotel. But in any case, I saw it in terms of classical mythology, where there's an Esopus River in Greece, as you may know, which ours is named after. And in mythology, the nymph of the river, Esopus, is raped by Zeus. And so I saw this as an allegory of the dam. This is like Zeus, the water authority, raping this poor river. And so Canto 3, Part 2 is called The Ashokan Dam, allegorized as the rape of Aegina, daughter of Esopus, by Zeus in the form of the U.S. eagle. 1. The ghost of Malthus admits, okay, I was wrong. It isn't resources that run out, it's the imaginaire, the shared space of night. Usura defines us by taking a cut of our very insubstantiality from the duende itself, the gypsy cards, slices of our luck, slices of our livers, like kebabs on a spit, as Hafez says. There's not enough to go around anymore. It's spread too thin. It's been monopolized, televangelized, and downsized to a fare thee well, an Ashokan farewell. 2. Malthus goes on. Well, now that I'm dead myself, I see the dead hand of the police on the thigh of nature. Flora, Ceres, Ops, Aegina, Pomona, and Old Night. The sexuality of the dead, all of it marked Bank of Hades, smallest denomination, $10 billion. That's Chinese ghost money. 3. Ashokan farewell, 17 villages drowned to their steeples, but every last grave dug up and moved to dry land, lest, God forbid, some rich Manhattanite should someday inadvertently drink eau de bones. or shower in ectoplasm. 4. Aptly named the water authority, like some Gnostic eon who's usurped the realm of the undines, lunar, mercurial, ordered chaos of Leonardo's notebooks, chopped and diced like so many carrots and onions beneath the guillotine of pure reason. God himself forbids counting, tells King David not to take a census. Counting is bad luck. Romano-Herodian tyranny, sin against divine vagueness. Measurement is oppression. Can you imagine a Neo-Pythagorean, Mazdean, and even non-numeric mathema, including aquamancy, dowsing, baptizing, anthroposophical hydrotherapy, rectified mesmerism, Paracelsian chaotic attractors, and oceans of lemonade? 5. Former site of Ashokan, now sunk beneath waves like the drowned city of Is, a yokel Atlantis, a local He-Brazil, sinkhole of resentment and impotent muttering, monument to futility invisible except in parching droughts when, so they say, ghost blue night lights glow beneath the Stygian muck, where some nameless dwarf was disappeared on the altar of Chase Manhattan Bank and its Illuminati water lords, decked out like Aztecs in frock coats of human skin, top hats and spats keeping watch by night for boogeyman Islamist terrorists carrying sacks of LSD, creeping up in miniature Japanese kamikaze submarines, or rappelling down on ropes from hot air balloons with scimitars and box cutters in their teeth. 6. Now I start to read my version from a book called The Dionysiaca by Nanos, one of my favorite classical poets, lived in the 5th century, came from Egypt. And he wrote an epic about Dionysus, which is published by Loeb Library, and is really a wonderful book. And I'm imitating him here. 6. Jupiter now deceitfully changes form, on heat before season, into an eagle, overflying Esopus River, beady eyeing the river god's daughter, Aegina, like an omen of winged rapture, plummets from sky and zooms in over riverbank, scoping out slick, naked body, wet hair. Not satisfied with far seeing, he yearns for a close-up of sleek whiteness, even though he could easily send his all-seeing eye, and what an eye, circumnavigating the cosmos round the bounds of infinity if he wished, yet thinks it not good enough to glut his scopophile lust for just one virgin girl. 7. Can this fizz be Saturn's genitals again, as if foam itself had a mind and shaped water into self-perfected birth, a neo-Aphrodite, water-born of rivers' self-pregnant waves? I spy Silverfoot stretched beneath stream's race, a moon on her wet way to insomniac Endymion's couch, white as the snows of heaven. So spake some voice from beneath the swirling eddies of Esopus. Zeus voyeured the swimming girl, Aegina, surveyed her naked breasts and all her flesh except the secrets of her lap. Modest god. His mind crept down from heaven toward that blue pool pricked on by Cupid's dart. Little boy versus shaggy lord of thunder, lightning bolts versus toy arrows. He carries her off in his talons. 8. Esopus, her father, witnesses the rape and chases after, cursing like Oceanus to Tethys. Nay, I will set all my waters against the lightnings of Olympus, drown the sun in my quenching blood, put out the stars of heaven. Under the bear I'll wash the axles of the wain, celestial Nile I'll drag down from its milky path, and give it a new home in some Celtic Thule. Tethys, awake! I'll swallow Capricorn and piss on Aquarius. 9. As he flies upward with the naiad, Jupiter lets loose a fiery spark like a stalk of fennel, which will burst into flame if you hold it up to the sun. So combustible it conceives a little flame and gives birth to woodborne fire. And tossed it in the stream. At once the river burst into flame as if turned to petroleum, boiled up against its banks with clouds of smoke from incinerated water lilies, shriveling galingale, crisped rushes reek of soot, curling, whirling in circles to intoxicate the very heavenly vaults. Fish hid in mud, slime kindled and broiled as the spark ran underwater in deep channels, poured forth polluted steam. 10. Hydriads and undines, driven naked from subaqueous dens, swift, barefoot and unveiled, fled burning like Vietnamese monks, dived unveiled into whatever puddle would take them. From now on, Esopus goes lame in one leg and limps like a gimp or fisher king. Wounded by dams and reservoirs, he lurches like Long John Silver toward Socrates. Wounded vet of the war against that $1 eagle, that Nobodaddy, the water authority, the highway authority, the consciousness authority, the spoiler of rivers and their organic nymphs. 11. Aegina, meanwhile, abandoned, pregnant, unwed teen mother, languishes on Desert Isle off Boeotia. We could think of it as Esopus Island in the Hudson. Gives birth to a boy she names Iacchus, then somehow disappears, leaving him all Robinson Crusoe'd and alone with no playmates but a nest of ants, busy-footed earth crawlers. He prays to his absent father to metamorphose them from clay-born, aphasic, insignificant bugs to an armed host of mortals with speech, the Myrmidons, the prototype fascist police. Iacchus becomes their warlord and leads them, carrying a well-wrought shield showing a sham bird wrapping up a naked girl, a river god on fire, Aegina mourning her father, morose and depressed, mourning for stiff-kneed, crippled Esopus. 12. Novo Ordo Seclorum. You can check in your pocket, you can look at a $1 bill, this section describes it. 13 bolts in one claw, and bearing on its breast the Washington family coat of arms, stars and stripes, unless it's actually meant to be Adam Weishaupt, who founded the Illuminati in 1776. He approves the undertaking, annuit coeptus, of a 13-storied ziggurat surmounted by the eyeball of total surveillance, the rhizomatic panopticon, the global accident, the internet. In God we trust, because we've given up pretending to believe in gold, thanks to the great anti-alchemist Nixon, who transmuted gold into sheer nothingness, pure imagination, pure debt, pure shit. Behold this hieroglyphic amulet of the only magic that ever really worked, money. Note the microscopic owl of Athena, upper right-hand shield on recto, upper right-hand indentation. Use powerful magnifying glass. It's there, it's very tiny. And note Genghis Khan's arrows in the eagle's claw. 13. Heraldry functions as a branch of esoteric hermeneutics as used by Gérard de Nerval, Alfred Jarry, and other proto-surrealists and pataphysicians, links the shield of the Myrmidons and the great reverse seal of the U.S. buck, as understood by Nicholas Roerich, the guru who convinced his disciple Henry Wallace to wheedle FDR into redesigning the Yankee dollar with Freemasonic designed eye and pyramid potent juju. Roerich was probably a Russian spy, or agent of Shambhala, or tool of the Illuminati. I lived near his memorial museum on West 107th Street for years, and learned the whole saga from its gossipy tell-all librarian. 14. Just as the Esopus Indians were exterminated, but not quite, by the Dutch, in the role of Zeus, so the Esopus River was lamed by lightning bolt technopathocracy of dams and stolen watersheds. The next war will not be for oil, but water, they say. Imperialism is thirsty work. Capitalism wants to own the 4 elements. Sell water by the riverbank. Sell earth and the fire of heaven. Sell air. Usura lames the rivers, rapes the nymphs, money itself is pollution, the devil's shit. And then footnote, there's a little footnote. On the other hand, there's something to be said for living in the feudal realm of NYC's watershed. Paternalist protection from development's fracking ravages, heavy industry or biochemical savages. In return, we tug our forelocks and admire the preservationism of nature as image of itself down here on the arts reservation. That's what I call Woodstock. So that's the canto about the dam. And now we have Canto 5, Section 1 is about Dr. Brink. Now, I don't know how many of you might have heard of Dr. Brink, but he was a great character around here in the 19th century. He was a warlock, a white witch, a healer. He was from an old Dutch family. They're still around here. There's still many Brinks in the phone book. And there's a road named after him, and you can see the house where he grew up. I think I'm going to mention that later in the canto. And I begin with a pseudo-sonnet for Dr. Brink, 1754 to 1843. The Enlightenment is a good ship lollipop, of which we're the ratus norvegicus, scuttling ashore in rainlight, sighing, sauve qui peut. Our guru knew that Dr. Brink of Kingston, his enchanted forest now reduced to a few tombstones in a suburban backyard, backed up to the exit ramp for Route 202, will supply us with graveyard gree-gree, quack spagyric brews, and slews of roots and simples. Someone must have been through before us, dropping breadcrumb clues and influencing us with rural cunning to pose as cryptic potentates and Nibelungize the scenic Hudson view. I said Route 202 because of the rhyme scheme. It's actually Route 209. Just for inside information for you locals. And his grave is there, you can see it. So skipping a little bit of prose, I come to Canto 5-2, Dr. Brink versus the Woodstock witches. This is the story of his life. Woodstock was full of witches. He lived down in Lake Katrine, actually, and every time there was a witchcraft emergency up here, they would have to send for Dr. Brink. And Woodstock is still full of witches, you know. Send our regrets to Mrs. Grimm, the witch who lived on top of Ohio Mountain, who gave that young Mr. Bonesteel, seventh son of a seventh son, a hard time, stalking him and his fiancée one night as a giant cat. He threw his boot at Mrs. Grimm's grin, but the shoe passed through her spectral hologram. She specialized in the hideous cackle, terrorized the tourists, and depressed real estate values. Witchcraft should be taken seriously in its negative black sense, not just lovely goddess worship, but malignant action at a distance, such as television. This is why in my house I've got dirt from the grave of old Dr. Brink, seventh son of a seventh son, and I'm studying, adapting his methodology. For example, use meltwater of winter's last snowfall as ointment for eyes, red sore with screenal bewitchment. Superstitious by ideological conviction, sensual derangements fit to induce amusing stupors, vapors, and raptures in the unclean, unclear mentations of a self-induced dupe or dope. We saw the house where Dr. Brink was born and dreamt up his first anti-witch campaigns. It was for sale. Gus Elmendorf's farm, where Spookhole still disgorges the occasional Indian or slave femur, is also for sale. The last old Mrs. Brink retired to Texas several years ago to be near her daughter. She was the one with the stories. Everywhere autos are blasting unfeelingly past, disturbing and dissipating the ether, leaving the sites of our researches sterile and dim. In the 18th century, darkness still retained its reign and spawned healthy dread of woods and crossroads and the insinuating sniggers of unseen rills of unsleeping streams. But now, night has changed, and the entire Northeast appears in satellite photos as the skin of a radioactive leper. Dr. Brink himself might shrink in horror from this vacuous glare like a scorned Lugosi. The cure for light pollution must be endarkenment, power failure, reversion to other powers still dormant in these unnoticed hills. Note, find Dr. B's staff, whip, and bottle, blessed by stars, in black cloak and wide brim hat, striding down midnight lilac roads. Channeling Dr. Brink on crystal radio, stand where he stood, replay his cases like chess problems, heavily charged tangos with Hecate in overgrown graveyards, tangled with briar rose and blackberry. He crisscrossed the starry vault of wisdom, a human balloon looming above highways and parking lots that pinched off the landscape's junky veins. Recovering from death's amnesia, planning another reincarnation in Kingston, another deja voodoo. Only certain families, like the Bone Steels, and by the way they're still around too, can act as messengers to fetch the doctor in emergencies. Anyone else is like to meet with unexplained delays or accidents or get lost along the way and arrive too late. This is perhaps the function of the text. Benighted, wandering in circles, a whited sepulchre with illegible hieroglyphs half effaced, a seance that flops due to the presence of skeptics. Spook-hole witches from the whole dark region held Walpurgisnacht Sabbat in Hurley, and headless ghosts loomed up at benighted backward riders. Down a dirt lane this time we find a bog where dead trees and poisonous weeds guarantee a future devoted to nameless gloom. Spook hole resists the allure of improvement, a mere sullen mirror or tarn in the style of some punk post-industrial Poe. Leaden rays occlude the cloudless day with an oppressive haze. Nothing will thrive here. We'll never drop acid here on Halloween. A makeshift descent to Avernus, a slipshod, bloodless sacrifice. Indian graveyard, slave graveyard, no stones, they died like animals or monks. Then it sinks deeper and deeper, layers rub together, membranes wear thin till seepage between dimensions begins. Cows from hell. Pausanias gives it 1 star, worth a detour. A few ashen sadhus are squatting naked, passing around a smokestack beneath druidic oaks. A shrine to the Nagas, lepers, Irishmen beating each other with blackthorn clubs in drunken glee. Penitenti, Patrick's Purgatorio. But no, just a trash dump. Just a concrete pylon surrounded by vaguely malignant weeds. Lenin plus electricity. The vapid day, the susurrus of post-Fordist production. Technology eventually becomes in itself a form of mournfulness, an icon of precisely what it has replaced, suppressed, entombed beneath layers of smothered black velvet and mothballs. Premature burial, gasping for breath, a landscape can be reshaped along nodes of forgetfulness. Fear of death is our last shared culture. Terminal resentment. No, it's machines. They're haunted now. Nature bereft of soul. Every laptop is a spook hole. Every cell phone a radio from Hades. Rationalism, the most widespread form of the irrational. Place itself erased in all its non-Euclidean geometries. Its algorithm of numb greed and hysterical puritanism. Animating power, anima mundi, Easter any day, pantheist monism. You risk insanity in order to bring back healing words from the ninth sky. Nobody wants them because they're not for sale. They're secret because worthless, like the gospel of the Christ who failed, who never harrowed hell, or redeemed Satan, or any of his other alleged stunts. His avatars along the Esopus include Big Indian, Oscar Wilde, John Pappenhank, Becky DeMilt, Dr. Brink, Esopus and Aegina, to name just 7. This book will have to be their spook hole, or hearing trumpet for the bat-like gibbering of shades, because the place itself has been erased. Okay, that's it from River People. And, that's for sale here for $20. Has lots of color photographs in it, so it's worth it. And I'll sign it if anybody dares to buy it. Now, to finish up another 15 minutes or so here, so I want to keep it short. In trying to write about every body of water in Esopus County, I did actually write about a lot of them. But I wasn't able to work it into a single thing the way I did with Esopus. But here I call this group of poems hydrographicon, a Greek word I made up, meaning writings about water, which also has the word icon in it as a kind of pun.
What is the word? I'm sorry.
Hydrographicon. And it's a series of poems about bodies of water, ranging from mud puddles to the Hudson River. This one is called John Burroughs' Nature Preserve. You've been traitor to race, class, nation, and gender, but the thrill is gone. In the flatulent aftermath of deconstructionism, everything you've lost or can't afford. The sage made a good thing out of nature and built this rude hut to escape his wife, now a museum. So now you can contemplate what it'd be like to contemplate the not yet reified and soon to disappear. You can peer through the windows and envy the unimaginable luxury of life without plumbing and electricity. Same skunk cabbages for 10,000 years. Same deer, same starry void, blissfully unaware of how it's been drained of its uselessness and declared a national treasure. Today only we offer the notion of indulging in the most voluptuous of all treasons, that against consciousness itself. That's a body of water because I should have put it in the poem. There's a little swamp where the skunk cabbages are growing. This is the cabin of John Burroughs called Slabsides, which is in the park down in West Park off Route 9W. Great park. Nobody ever goes there. It's really, really nice. I recommend it. So this one is called Pond, and it's about an artificial pond that my friends Levi Strauss and Brett built on their property. Pond. Liquefact artifact. Designer pond. Goes Genji. How long before it outgrows its bulldozer birthmarks and gets real? Humans are part of nature, okay. But what about aesthetics? A recent wound, suppurating a la Fisher King. Pond as Grail. It leaks. Plugged with clay, a gormless face appears, acneed in algae. Months of silence ensue. Is the pond some kind of moron? But wait, one night a single, solitary, lovesick amphibian pilgrim, awakened perhaps after centuries of mummification in caked humus, or maybe fallen from the clouds, a Fortean egg, a damnable fact, one frog suddenly soliloquizes, and within a few tense nights of polluted asterisms and baking days of suspense in the Athanor of hayseed sun, lo, a responsorium, choral, liturgical, whacked out, sex-crazed and asymmetrical, arises. Dragonflies arrive like papal helicopters. Word spreads from birds to birds. A new shy nymph has appeared, azure and intelligent, more or less ex nihilo. This one is called Temporary Autonomous Puddle. Trefoil, clover, and grass drowned in clear rain puddle assume hypnagogic status. Mad Sweeney would see therein a mini Atlantis or Leoness, chained in time and wavering in space, watercress beneath ecstatic rivulets that will fill the streambeds of hell at the last trump. Even mud gains gem-like nebulosity, potent with luminous sprouts and wriggling animalcules, translucent brownian soup to the loony's hungry eye and lovesick appetite for humiliation, charged with hydraulic energies, bubbling with negative ions, cup for saints, a bathing of bare feet the Pope would envy, baths for sparrows, seltzer of wood sprites, entoptic and nocturnal as an egg. The green spill dazzles and reflects the mayfly day. And this is Neptunism, a Hudsonian ode. So finally I get to the big one, the Hudson. Neptunism, the Thalian theory of cosmic fluidity, underpins our Tong-like agenda here at Hydrographicon International Limited and Incorporated. The offshore front for our very own City of Willows floating crap game beyond the 12-mile limit of our black moonshine speedboat sleek as a cigarette. Antediluvian, we yearn for our pelagic strand, our Atlantic City boardwalk or ocean grove. A veritable bouillabaisse greets Proteus at the seafood restaurant down by the Alexandrine beach, a menu that changes with your mood and level of gourmandise. Ambifluent Hudson, not so much river as vein of the sea, estuarial fjord, saline all the way to Albany. We are your conceptual Vikings, your vegetarian whalers, icebound and carousing away the Arctic season in your chaste embrace. Chaos is a gas, and phlogiston's good fun. We worship the mother of titans, but we ourselves are 99% seawater, and proud of it. Old salts, old soaks, refugees from the Proterozoic, we cling to outdated paradigms and hypotheses of élan vital, all anecdotal evidence, of course, and not to be trusted, unless you must, and we must. Bannerman Island, anybody been to Bannerman Island? A few people. It's an island in the Hudson River where a guy named Bannerman, who was a Scottish armament dealer, built a fake castle, which is now and then one night it blew up, and he left the island, and the castle is there. It's a ruin, and as the guide said to me, it's held up only by its poison ivy. I don't know if they're still doing the guided tours. They used to leave from the town with the art town. Beacon.
I think they are.
Are they still running?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth doing. It's a nice little thing to do. Bannerman Island. For 35 years, we were warned off by rumors of snakes, goblins, venomous bugs, and poison ivy. Now we've lived long enough for the guided tour. Ready-made legend, ether dream of Sir Walter Scott at his most lugubrious. Bannerman's thin scrim of cheap stucco expresses our sentiments exactly. Any pseudo-past that lasts long enough eventually becomes a valid theme for childish dreams. Fake lore into folklore. An Ozymandias for the cognitively challenged. A sphinx for the shallow. If only we didn't have to share it. How illumined we could become. Staring at Storm King in moonlight, across the bight, or swooning under scudding cloud, reconciled with precarious solitude. Wallkill. This is for Robert Kelly, because when Robert was a child, they made him go to a camp by the Wallkill, where he became traumatized and turned into the poet we know and love. I think it was a Catholic camp. Warm day after the Day of the Dead. River looks plump. Cloudy cider. Sparkling. Optimistic. Cornucopias. Mulled with wind-blown gold leaves. Friend of bard and farmer. And after all, who else counts? But then dusk gathers round like shrouds at a Victorian funeral. Back when death was death, and not yet hygienically tucked away. Those who no longer believe in witchcraft are doomed to reinvent it under other names, and then discover themselves defenseless against its most maleficent spells. Weedy and lugubrious water maples droop like mourners at an antique wake, sodden with whiskey and cake. Deep blue, disguised as gray, suffuses the banks and cornfields in a melancholy pall of 19th century shadow, almost palpable as mist, but ineffable. A bloated moon, etc. Dark side of the river, long ago flooded ruins of summer camp for poor boys from Brooklyn. Somewhere out in sluggish oxbows, beneath cold pines, I hear a whippoorwill, the American nightjar, an owl, an unnameable rustling in the underbrush. Who knows what future poets suffered here? Precocious existential crises moved by an apprehension of mourning, sorrows precious and redeemable. Let us choose in love of fate the ghosts that once chose us, out of the river that flows from Summerland into November. Water music. Up there, various creeks, technically speaking, are making no sound, as if there's no ear to hear them. Waves make waves, but only brains make noise. Or so they say, blah, blah, semantic quibbling, because I can tune in from afar at will and hear each trickle over every rill, Coxonkill, Peterskill, and other eco-touristic bits of real estate, which secretly I expropriate from my Brunonian palace of memory. We call it lunar radio, as if the moon were our crystal, our white noise, our radiant tube, and we were its hams. Each band broadcasts a babbling brook, WBBL-FM, with occasional choral frogs, and solo for owl from the dark dance hall, high atop this inhuman mountain. Etheric, not electromagnetic, these transmissions are blocked by addiction to other media. You believe what you see on TV, and I'll believe what I hear from chilly November spates so rich in yin of fluid adamantine sonic limpidity. Indian telegraph, public telepathy, pathological subjectivity, whatever. Only please, no more of your vile transparency, your synthetic illumination. I'm beaming to another station, or state of self-induced superstitious stupor, the torpor of rural cluelessness and refusal of information. You take the New Age ambient CD, and I'll take the manifesto of murmuring creeks of the Mundus Imaginalis, superimposed upon their meaningless flow in a one-to-one map of the organic landscape, i.e., landscape with organs, limbs, voices, veins, a cyclic and passing show. So I'll go on 5 more minutes, shall I? And then we'll have 10 minutes to buy books. This is a review of Masaru Emoto's Hidden Messages in Water. Everybody read it? Michael, you read it. I know you read it. It's a great book. It's completely off the wall, but it's a great book. Hidden Messages in Water. Perfect name for a detective of emotions, Mr. Emoto. Exfoliated from the Solomonic sixes of plain H2O, Mr. Emoto. Although Eyes lick up these images as tongues lick snow, each tongue a separate animal, conic and rugose as squid. Even so, Mr. Emoto's hallmarkism spoiled the show. The science is pseudo. But so what? Haven't you ever fallen in love with a ghost in an old spirit photo? Hydrozooism, the doctrine that water itself is animate, mercuric, paradoxic, alive as phoenix or sphinx, proposes that some of Emoto's crystalline roses are perfectly Rosicrucian. What Thales saw. You may remember Thales was the first pre-Socratic philosopher, and he said that everything is based on water, so naturally he had to get a place in my little collection here. This is called What Thales Saw. Rain on a window screen. Peering closer, he notes each captive drop contains complete reflection of same scene, and so on. Matter as infinite regression of water. Peeping Thales sees Tethys, naked with his X-ray specs, briny, saline, sea rack, and weed-strewn, scented nymph, in each tiny square of H2O, a holographic microcosmos or tiny icon. Imagine the lattice of membranes in n dimensions and free to flow, and hey presto, the vast nymph of all nymphs, strange attractor of all liquid light. And this one is called Hydrographicon, so I guess it's the title poem. Like imp of the perverse, this verse is crushing my peaches. Invert converts to extroversion, exposes self to convent. Hurt, the nuns retaliate with tightly rolled black umbrellas, suddenly flexible as dried elephant prongs. I'm the panegyrist of filled-in canals, although certain sections still flow, sluggish with psychotropic water lilies. Ghost canals may create feng shui ley lines beneath valuable view shed. Can you learn how to profit from this knowledge? A quote from Hesiod's Theogony. But everyone knows the river he happens to live by, says Hesiod. The Nibelungization of the Hudson will spread like an apple's rot spot from the sub-rainish blemish of an upriver ice fort or veins in cheese, measured as waves, not particles, in layers of ancient craquelure, lacquered over the pinchbeck of its faded brick. Instant sense of complicity with dereliction. Shimmering leitmotif of abandoned warehouses. Light falls from the estuary like flakes, scraped from an electroplated fake silver overturned soup tureen of real regret. Such poverty is wasted on the poor. I think I'll stop there. And still a few left in the series, but I'll save them for the public version. And meanwhile, there's books for sale, including books by local luminaries such as Michael Brownstein and Andy Clausen and me. And I don't think we have anything by Ed Sanders, do we? That's too bad. Anyway. So enjoy reading them if you buy them. And you get a free calendar if you buy a book while they last. Okay? Oh, and Carolee Schneeman is giving an event at 7 o'clock at, where is it? Wham.
Woodstock Artists Association.
Woodstock Artists Association. She's showing videos and answering questions. You want me to sign it?
That'd be wonderful.
All right.
I might give you the
No, give the money to Jen. sitting there in the black t-shirt.
I think that's where I go because I learned how to use my mind.
It's beautiful, Peter. I really love it. It's so wonderful. What a beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you so much. You know, the thing is that we love it. We have native of life works and things that need us. So I'm going to unfortunately have to get it now.
Did you ever see my black vest manifesto? Black vest
I'm going to get my car there.
Well, we're going to get